Welcome to Buffalo Rumblings Live. My name is Matt Warren, and I'm joined tonight by Brian Galliford and his plethora of cats. Say hi, Brian.
Hello, how are you?
I'm dandy. How's your beard?
Scratchy, itchy,
Manly.
amazing. Yeah.
That's good. Um, it's not as good as Lee Smith's beard,
No, nothing is.
which, as much as we talked about the tight ends against the Cleveland Browns, Lee Smith not so much involved. Chandler had a bunch of targets. Marquise Gray had some really big plays. Let's talk about that those tight end plays to Marquise Gray. Is that an indication that Nate Hackett actually knows what he's doing?
Sure. I mean, the scheme has never been the issue for Nate Hackett. It's utilization. Scheme is fine. Listen, scheme is scheme in the NFL. People get hung up on it, and his problems are not with the design of the offense. The design of the offense is fine. I think the plays that he called for Marquise Gray were good in that it's something that the Browns had no, they'd never seen stuff like that before because Marquise Gray had never played for the Bills before. It's circumstantial, I think. I don't think it's certainly anything we're going to see the team sustain over the next few weeks. But they were huge plays when the Bills needed them. So, I mean, they were nice to see.
Keeping with the offensive play calling, let's go to actually a Doug Marrone decision, and that's the decision to go for it on fourth down in Browns territory when that game was a complete disaster. Actually, let me take a step back. You're in the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
How many times did you mention the 6-3 game against the Browns in the first half to the fans sitting around you?
Four times.
Go
Four
ahead.
times. Yeah, it was four times. We were just remarking how we had watched 6 quarters of Browns-Bills games, and we had 12 points to show for it.
Yeah, that was They didn't show any highlights from that game. Not that there were any highlights, except for Roscoe Parrish running around deep in his own end trying to make something happen. Then he fumbled that, right? Is that right?
I remember nothing about the game.
Okay, anyway. So I remarked about it very early on Twitter. It just seemed to have that whole vibe, and then Doug Marrone decides to go for it on fourth down. Take us through what happened on that fourth down play, why it was successful, and then what happened in the stadium after that.
It was successful because Kyle Orton recognized that the play wasn't working the way it was designed, climbed the pocket, and made a great throw to a player who has been on fire and made a great catch.
Would you call it a great throw?
Yeah, absolutely. I would call that a great throw. Probably the best throw he's had since he's been here.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He had to put it up over the top of a defender. He did it against the grain. It was a good play.
Okay. See, I thought Robert Woods bailed him out more than it was a great throw, and
it was a better catch than throw, certainly.
And then he drew the pass interference anyway, which is again why you take shots down the field in the first place. Either your guy's going to catch it, or you're probably going to get a pass interference. At least he gave his guy a shot, which is one thing that we always gave Trent Edwards and even E.J. Manuel some grief for not doing. They score the next play with that little Chris Hogan little 1 yard. Or 2 yard, I guess, flare to the right side. They kick off, and then boom, Jerry Hughes earns another, I don't know, $2 million. So after all of that happened, Jerry Hughes is in the end zone. Is that the end zone area kind of that you're in?
It was the other side of the field, but our end zone, yes.
Okay, so what was the mood in the stadium then? I mean, it went from 0 to 60.
Well, the Hughes play was weird because, I mean, you probably got the sense of it watching it on CBS. No one really knew for sure that the play was going to stand because there were flags all over the place. And, being on the other side of the stadium, we thought maybe he had been out of bounds when he recovered. It was just kind of a pause before the storm type of situation because when it became clear that it was a touchdown, everyone just kind of seized the moment and realized, that, hey, the Bills have sort of blown this thing open in the span of a minute, and like I said it on the site yesterday, it was always going to be one of those games where a team was going to go on a run and the other team wasn't going to be able to respond, and the Bills are just lucky that the run happened for them.
Right. I was really hungry at that moment in time, and I wasn't able to get the food I needed. I put the food in the microwave
You're a hungry boy.
over the span of the kickoff. No, I can't remember what I think it was popcorn or something like that over the course of the kickoff. And I went back to get it, and as soon as I saw the tackle being made, and so I come back out and I saw that the score was 13-3, and I'm like, "What happened?" And my wife's sitting there. She's like, "I don't know. I wasn't watching." And so they finally showed the replay, and because I didn't even see it. So it was just an interesting. A very interesting, like you said in the state, nobody really knew what was happening at the time, and I certainly didn't because I wasn't bothering to pay attention, I guess. But
That's good to know when I leave you in charge of the blog, by the way.
Oh, I'm not even allowed
That's a great admission.
I'm not allowed key breaks or anything like that. I got to keep a jar under the table or something like
snappy.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so the Bills go on a run. The Browns aren't able to respond. I think over the course of 7 possessions from the Browns' missed field goal until Johnny Manziel comes in, they allowed something like 8 yards on 7 possessions or something like that total. The defense locked it down, and I thought Hoyer was actually moving the ball very well in the first couple drives, and it almost seemed like the Browns were doing what they wanted to do on both ends of the field, and they just weren't scoring, and then the Bills ended up scoring and doing what they wanted to do on defense. Everything just started to click, and it's been a long time since we've seen that happen in a game. We've seen the Bills go from wire to wire, jumping out to a nice lead and then being able to hold it, but to be able to almost completely turn around a game. I'm not saying it was like a huge comeback, even the comeback like it was against the Vikings, but to see them completely do a 180 and go from nothing's working to at least we were able to find something. It just seemed like, I'm not going to say they turned a corner because I don't think they did. I don't think the Browns are very good, but it was something different, and I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
No, I never really got that sense. I mean, it's Bills Browns.
That's what I mean. Like, you want it to mean more, but I mean, if they do it this week against Peyton Manning and the Broncos, I think it'll.
Yeah, I mean, if they have that same narrative throughout the course of a 60-minute game in Denver, then sure, maybe we could talk about turning a corner. But it just felt like the least crappy of 2 teams, quite honestly, on Sunday.
Yeah. Johnny Manziel comes in. He certainly would look like he fumbled the ball when Kyle Williams hit him and knocked him on his butt. I don't know what else to say about the rest of the game. It was kind of, they played out the stretch, and like I even wrote the game recap up, and then Dan Carpenter kicked a field goal, and I was so meh about it that I forgot to put it in the headline.
You did do that, yeah.
I completely missed Dan Carpenter's field goal because it was so worthless in the grand scheme of things that I just felt like it didn't even matter. But Jeff Rubin wants to know why does it seem that the Bills abandon the run each and every game? I think this is also a byproduct of the fact that CBS said it about 15 times during the game that the Browns' run defense was the worst in the league, but the Bills just couldn't get anything going. Why did they abandon it?
Did they abandon it? It kind of didn't feel like that at all. I mean, didn't Jackson hit 20 carries?
He had 70 yards, which is the most by a single running back in any game this season.
I don't recall exactly, but I'm pretty sure he exceeded 20 carries.
He had 21. Dixon had 6 for 25 yards, and Bryce Brown had 3 for 11.
I mean, that's 30 carries.
Yep.
That seems pretty. I mean, they averaged 34 a game last year, and they were one of the run-heaviest teams in the league. I don't think they abandoned the run at all on Sunday.
31 passes, 30 rushes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess that was the question. So anyway, people still talk about the train whistle. Is the train whistle anything in the stadium?
Whistle?
Yeah, on 3rd down they're like doo doo, and then.
I don't think they do that anymore.
They did it. They missed it on one of the 3rd downs.
Oh no, they do that. You're right. They do that. Yeah. I don't know. I just kind of tune all that out.
Because we talk about it. It's a hot topic on Twitter when it happens, and the folks in the comment section here are talking about it. Okay, let's see here. These are Broncos questions. That's just too long to read. I'm not going to read that. Guys, if you're going to ask questions in the comment section, 4 paragraphs. I mean, I'm sorry, bud, but anyway.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay. So, what? Oh, man. This is just...
Lazy talk show host.
It really is. Shouldn't I have a producer that reads this and then gives me like one line? I gotta produce my own show, and I just don't get paid enough for that. That's on SB Nation. Okay, so MKOST, MCOST84, I guess, kept asking to himself during the Browns game why it seemed the offense continued to be so deliberate in the huddle, getting the plays called, taking so much time. What happened to the up-tempo, no-huddle business?
Good question. That was gone for all intents and purposes by the end of last season. They slowed down considerably. I mean, they were still moving a little faster than they even are now, but that has not been an emphasis all year. And I don't know if it's a function of they were trying to keep E.J. Manuel comfortable, and then that's kind of what Kyle Orton has done his whole career, and so they've just abandoned it sort of, but it's not a factor anymore, and it has not been a factor for quite a while. Honestly, I don't think many people miss it, even though the offense is continuing to struggle. I don't think it would benefit them necessarily as more than anything than just, it's like an in-game wrinkle. That's gone. It has been gone for a while.
Okay. Let's talk quickly about the AFC playoff picture before we segue into a brief conversation about the Denver Broncos. The Bills are at a logjam at 7-5. They're behind the Miami Dolphins and Kansas City Chiefs. I know that you don't like tiebreakers or use even more colorful language when talking about.
I have done that, yes.
But do you think that the Bills can make the playoffs and not at least? They have to at least go 3-1. Is there a way they can go 3-1? 4-0?
The only way to answer that question is on paper, and on paper, absolutely not. But, they play the Broncos this weekend, and if they win, then I think people will start seriously considering the notion. But, it's cliche to spout the one game at a time thing, and people hate it when teams do it, but that's the only way to approach it. They play Denver this weekend. Let's tackle Peyton Manning first before we talk about running the table. Okay,
so let's segue to a conversation about the Denver Broncos and the Buffalo Bills. My name is Matt Warren. Brian Galliford is here as well. So let's talk about those Denver Broncos. The conversation really needs to start with Peyton Manning, right?
Oh, yeah. It doesn't need to, but it does.
He's really good, right?
He's pretty solid. That's sort of a pretty good quarterback. They have other good players.
That's your answer about Peyton Manning?
They have other great players. Listen, it's Peyton Manning. Of course the conversation is going to start with him.
So the Bills have the highest sack rate in the NFL. They sack the quarterback more than any other team, not just numbers-wise, but as far as percentage of dropbacks. Manning is the best at getting the ball out and into his receivers' hands. How do you see the Bills being able to generate any pressure?
They will. They'll rely on that front four. They're not going to blitz him. Peyton Manning eats blitzes for breakfast. They're just going to play coverage and hope that they can disrupt the timing of routes to get in his face enough to rattle him. That's the only thing you can do against a player like that. He doesn't take sacks very often because he does get the ball out quickly. So they're probably going to play press and hope that he can beat them deep, and not hope that he can beat them deep, make them. They're going to try to force him to beat them deep because that's sort of where he's at his weakest right now.
Right. Yeah.
That's what they do. That's what they'll do.
We heard when Stephon Gilmore injured his wrist, last year, that one of the problems he was having kind of getting back into the starting lineup was he wasn't able to jam receivers at the line as much. He's going to have to do that against the Denver Broncos, which, by the way, Corey Graham and Stephon Gilmore didn't follow Josh Gordon or anything like that around against the Browns. They stayed on their own sides of the field, and I would anticipate them doing that against the Broncos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if they're staying on one side of the field, Gilmore's going to be lined up against Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders at different points in time. Do you think he's going to be able to get his hands on him and actually jam them at the line and move them off their route at all?
Yeah, sure.
Is that something?
He and Graham are both good at that.
Okay, because Gilmore's been getting crushed by pretty much everybody for his coverage this year. And if he goes up and jams at the line, even if he makes a good jam and the receiver gets past him and, say, Peyton Manning does Peyton Manning things and drops it over the top, Gilmore's going to get crucified for that. But you think they're going to be able to disrupt at least some of the timing of the wide receivers?
Well, I think they have to. They have to make that part of the game plan. They can't just let those guys run unencumbered and let Manning pick them apart. They can't let themselves be picked by other routes. I mean, that's what Denver does. They throw the short game and take the 7 to 8 yard plays and just milk you to death that way. They have to build that in. And yeah, sure, the opportunity will exist for Gilmore to miss a jam and get beat deep. That's why teams have safeties on the field, and that's. There's not a way to completely take away everything that the Broncos are going to do through the air. They just have to be consistent throughout the game and execute their game plan and mix things up and try to keep Peyton guessing. And these are not impossible things to do. They're just really hard to do against a great quarterback.
Ron from New Mexico asks, is the press really going to work with Thomas, Sanders, Welker, and Thomas, assuming Julius Thomas is back, which he's been out for the last 2 weeks with. Is it a back or an ankle? Why can't I remember that?
I don't remember.
Doesn't really matter. He's been out for 2 weeks. I know that. Won't the Broncos find ways to get guys off clean on the line and beat the jam and get wide open? Yeah, they're absolutely going to do that. I'm just going to answer. The point is, if you disrupt the primary read and make Manning go to a secondary read, and then maybe by that time Mario Williams is in there. Now, yeah, Peyton Manning moves through his reads fairly quickly. It's just going to be getting in throwing lanes. It's like you said before. It's hard to do against a really good quarterback
and a really good receiving core. Quite frankly, and they're not going to play exclusively man press. They're going to play zone and they're going to play off and they're going to put 1 high or 2 high or 3 high and they're just going to mix things up. So I mean that's the point. They're not going. I mean, if you just play press man the whole game, then Denver can throw in any other concept that beats man and kill you. That you have to keep things mixed up. You have to keep them on their toes. So I mean, they're going to try to do pretty much everything they have. If they're smart, they'll throw their entire playbook at them because this is basically their Super Bowl this weekend. They should pull out every trick they have up their sleeve.
And then Dan Lavoie asked about the pick plays that San Diego used so effectively against the Bills earlier this year. Do you think the Bills will have an answer for that?
Sure. I mean, again, it's just mixing coverages up, playing more zone. Teams can always find ways. I mean, you saw Cleveland did it. They ran Miles Austin on a wheel route out of the slot, and Preston Brown was the guy who picked him up in coverage, and they got a 30-something yard gain out of it. There's always ways to manipulate coverages with route concepts, and I mean, guys are just going to be open. It's the NFL, so your goal isn't to completely shut everything down. It's to play sound and limit what you give up, and that's pretty much what you want to do. I think it was the 2006 season. The Bills were terrible. It was Dick Duran's first season, and the Colts were the Colts, and they went in and they played Dick Duran's super conservative, limit the big play defense, and they lost 17-16 with J.P. Lossman at quarterback. That's going to be the game plan. They're going to try to limit the score and make sure that they, earn their drives and try not to give up the big play. And that's the thing. That's Schwartz's MO. That's why he plays coverages. That's why he doesn't blitz very often. And that's what they'll do on Sunday.
Ron just asked quickly, do you think Brandon Spikes will get less playing time this week, knowing that?
Oh yeah, he might not break 10 snaps.
Really? Okay.
And they'll play Roby a lot. Roby's a solid, at least physically, a solid matchup inside against Welker, and they can't afford to have a guy like Brandon Spikes on the field against the types of players that are running routes for the Broncos. And Spikes, quite frankly, isn't even their best run defending linebacker at the moment. That's Preston Brown. So I don't think they'll miss Spikes much this weekend.
All right. So how we haven't talked about the Bills' offense yet? I have no idea. The Bills' offense. I mean, Kyle Orton looked terrible, terrible against the Browns. Is good Kyle? I mean, I know you can't tell me if good Kyle Orton is going to show up or bad Kyle Orton or whatever, but what can the Bills do to help Kyle Orton and that offense get off the ground against a ferocious pass rush in its own right on the Denver Broncos?
Honestly, I don't know what else they can do. They're throwing a lot of short stuff, and they're doing some nice things schematically to get guys open in the flat and in the intermediate range. And I think Orton just needs to be better, honestly. There were a lot of throws in the second half. He missed Woods up the seam on that one drive, and I think it was a third down play, in fact. And he had another first down conversion to Watkins that he skipped in the dirt. He's got to play better. And, Cleveland has a really good secondary, don't get me wrong, and they were covering Buffalo up good, but there were missed opportunities. And, the first pick by Jim Leonard was a missed opportunity. He stared Watkins down and didn't get the ball out in time. It's a touchdown waiting to happen. I mean, we rip on the coaches all the time, but these plays are there to be had, and Orton's not making enough of them. So really the only thing that can get better, from my perspective, is just Orton playing better.
Yeah, execution, and it's one of the things that Eric Wood brought up in his weekly appearance on WGR. It's, we go to the sideline and we see whether he kept saying missed blocks because he doesn't want to throw anybody else under the bus, but everybody on that sideline knows that Sammy Watkins dropping a pass or Kyle Orton completely missing a throw or something like that is having a huge impact on the Bills' ability, not just in the red zone, but particularly in the red zone. Mike Catalana had a nice little stat today. Only 2 NFL teams haven't lost by more than 15 points this year, the Seahawks and the Bills. How have the Bills not gotten blown out yet?
I mean, they pretty much got blown out against New England. That's pretty much it, though. I mean, they haven't played many great teams. New England would be the closest, I think. And they were handled, I think, in that game. That streak may come to an end in the next month. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, playing like 3 future Hall of Fame quarterbacks will do that for you.
Yeah.
Brian, I want to bring in Ian Henson from Mile High Report. Hi, Ian. Say hi.
Hi, guys.
How's it going?
Hopefully you can hear me.
We can. Everything's
okay.
Going well.
Good.
So, Brian, do you want to stick around or you want to go to bed? Because you look...
I will bid you adieu, I believe.
All right. Say bye, Brian.
Goodbye, Brian.
Maybe he's going to go shave, too. How's it going, Ian?
Everything's been well. How about you guys?
Oh, fine. We're 7-5. Bills fans are complaining we're not 9-3, but it took like 3 missed kicks from a Lions kicker and a 4th and 20 conversion against the Minnesota freaking Vikings to be 7-5 instead of 5-7. So right now I'm okay with 7-5 because I know that's the right probably thing. Actually, that leads me right into the question I want to ask you. What did the Rams do that the Bills can emulate and recreate against the Broncos in order to beat Denver?
I think the Rams got us we did not have our line set up. I don't know if you know about that. We shuffled 3 major parts of our offensive line. We did it against the Raiders, and it looked great, but it didn't look so good against the Rams. And those guys are starting to click, and that's why you see C.J. Anderson doing 160 yards on the ground back-to-back. I don't know. You could stop the run. I mean, Peyton was worth hardly anything on Sunday as far as passing. I think for the first time in Peyton's career, his defense is rated ahead of his offense. And I don't know. You do have a secondary that's kind of depleted of talent right now. And it's not like you guys have an overabundance of wide receiving talent, but I do like Robert Woods. I'm probably one of the larger Kyle Orton fans in existence. I really liked him as a Bronco. He's not gonna probably won't win the Super Bowl with Kyle Orton, but he had a kind of I don't know if you remember the first Josh McDaniels year. Broncos went 6-0 with Kyle Orton. Kyle Orton got hurt, and then the Broncos started sucking.
That'll happen. No,
Um,
he's been a steadying presence. He played absolutely horribly this last week, and that's I think his biggest thing is he has not been consistent. It's either good Kyle Orton or bad Kyle Orton, and he'll show up and he'll be. I'm reticent to say he would be lights out, but like he'll put the ball where it's supposed to be at least, and then he'll have games where he can't hit the broadside of a barn, and we've seen that twice in the last, I don't know, 3 weeks or something like that. So it's just the way Kyle Orton has been. Oh, Peyton Manning gets the ball out real quick. The Bills' defense is really built on a four-man pass rush. What do they have to do maybe on the back end or anywhere in the defense to be able to get after Peyton Manning and get him a little bit uncomfortable?
Anytime Peyton can't tell the difference between your cover 2 and cover 3, you got him. The Patriots did that a lot, where he wasn't really sure where the linebackers were going and what they were doing, and all of a sudden, like, they're the ones making interceptions and kind of creating the havoc. If you're going to rush Peyton Manning, you're screwed. I think anybody who's rushed Peyton Manning this season has seen that. But when you drop so many people into coverage, that Peyton Manning, he'll try and throw into triple coverage. And if you have 3 guys there to catch it, chances are one of them is going to be able to take the ball away from him. Like, he doesn't throw just 1 interception a game. When he throws an interception, he throws 3 that game. And I think that the coverage that you guys could create might be the downfall of him.
Okay. Too many questions about the Bills losing. I'm not asking any of those questions. You said you were a big Robert Woods fan. What are the Bills going to have to do on offense to minimize the Denver Broncos' equally potent pass rush?
Short passes. I'm so sorry. Can you hold on 1 second?
Yeah, you're fine.
I have something running in my background that's really loud.
I'll do a reset. My name's Matt Warren. We're here with Ian Henson from Mile High Report. That's SB Nation's Denver Broncos blog. You should definitely check them out this week. I know we'll be posting some of their articles into our river on the front page there at buffalorumblings.com. But you can also check them out on Twitter and Facebook. I've been tagging them on some of our stuff, but I'm sure we'll get more into it as we hit Wednesday and practice starts again and things like that. Are you back? No? Okay. It's fine.
Wait.
Where are you in Denver right now? Are you in Colorado?
I'm so sorry.
Are you,
I'm so sorry.
It looks dark there.
I'm. It's nighttime here. It's
it's nighttime. It's 8 o'clock at night. Oh man.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I had a trailer apparently deciding to play. I think it might have been the new Star Wars.
Well, at least it was the Star Wars one. I got a little bit giddy with it. I know not everyone's super excited about it, but I'll be up for it when it comes out next year.
Yeah.
All right. So go with the pass rush for the Denver Broncos. How are the Bills going to be able to minimize that?
I'm not sure if you're aware, when Kyle Orton came, this is the regime that passed over Kyle Orton for Tim Tebow. And in that same year, Kyle Orton asked for his release, and he was granted his release, and he ended up with the Chiefs, and he came back and he beat Tim Tebow. It was a 10-7 game. It was terrible to watch, but he did beat the Broncos that year, and I think they did it through possession, really. You guys don't have you guys have Fred Jackson back. You don't have C.J. Spiller. You have the ability to run on us, and I think that might be the way to do it. That's the way to bleed the Broncos, is just kind of keep it out of Peyton Manning's hand, using Hogan or wherever it may be, where you, instead of running for 5 yards, you're passing for 5 yards, and you're putting together these long 80-yard drives that take 7-8 minutes off the. And Peyton's going to come in. Peyton's going to go 3 and out the first 3 or 4 times he holds the ball, probably. And if that's an entire quarter and a half, like, you guys just made a half out of it.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you've mentioned everybody on the Buffalo Bills offense except for Sammy Watkins. He has not had a very good month. He did not do well in November. He had back-to-back 100-yard games, and then teams started stacking coverages to his side and double teaming him and things like that, coupled with bad Kyle Orton showing up on several occasions. What is the Broncos' defensive scheme? What are they going to do as far as not up front, but on the back end? How are your safeties? How are your cornerbacks? Are they going to flip-flop coverages to follow Sammy Watkins, or are they going to just play a side of the field?
At the moment, I assume they're going to put Chris Harris on Sammy Watkins. Not a lot of people know about Chris Harris outside of Denver, but Keith Talib, his health is still up in the air, and then we have a third-string corner. Well, he's kind of a fourth-string corner, Kayvon Webster, who I don't know will be healthy enough for the game. So likely it's going to be Sammy Watkins one-on-one with Chris Harris most of the time. As far as backs go, they use T.J. Ward a lot as a kind of like a fourth linebacker. Mm-hmm. They bring him in. It's not unusual to see three safeties in for the Broncos. You got Quinn Carter and Raheem Moore of the Baltimore division game fame. And you have T.J. Ward, who's not really great in coverage, but he does knock the snot out of someone when they catch it. But yeah, I would assume Chris Harris on Sammy Watkins most of the day, which leaves Robert Woods and Chris Hogan. Did I say his name right?
Chris, which one? Those are like the easiest names in the world. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I mean those two are going to be probably matched up. It's not really weird to see DeMarcus Ware in coverage, and I don't know what the heck they're doing with that. But he got an interception last week, and I assume if I were a fantasy guy, I might start Scott Chandler.
Really?
He's probably in for a big day.
So Scott Chandler is he's the definition of limited tight end. He's not been doing so hot this year either. He became a free agent at the end of last year and his services weren't really requested around the league, so he actually ended up re-signing with the Bills for less than the contract he had signed the previous time he signed with the Bills. So, we like Scott Chandler. We just don't love Scott Chandler. So that's interesting that you say that. So, what are some of the other ways that the Bills might be able to gain yards? You had mentioned something about running the ball a lot. Why is running the ball going to be an effective way, not just to keep it out of Peyton Manning's hands, but why is it going to be an effective way to move the ball against the Broncos defense?
No one's really tested the Broncos, and the teams that have done well with it. Teams can't run on the Broncos because they can't afford to.
Right.
You're competing against Peyton Manning, who can score a touchdown in less than a minute if he needed to. So it's almost as if why would you bother running? But in reality, I think if a team were to come in and actually run the ball, like the St. Louis Rams, they would probably have a good time and a good game.
Well, that's good. I'll start Fred Jackson this week. I'm also starting Demaryius Thomas, guys. I'm on a bye this week because I clinched first in my fantasy football league. I'm 12-1. Turned down for Watkins. Throw it up in the air, but with my yellow dress shirt on, I'm going to throw it up. But anyway, so do you have any questions for me, Ian Hinson from Mile High Report, about the Buffalo Bills and what we might see this weekend?
Well, I'm really interested in what you guys think of Kyle Orton. That's been like the most interesting part because I thought the way he played Dallas was perfect. I think there was maybe some insider knowledge there might have been a suspension at quarterback, so he got to hold the feet of the Cowboys over the fire a little bit. And there was a rush to get through the PED agreement, which may or may not have been led by Jerry Jones, but Kyle Orton played it perfectly. Ended up in Buffalo.
Right. I have no idea about any of that stuff that you were talking about. I do know that he wanted a chance to play more, and he certainly was going to get that in Buffalo, I think. He's been a steadying presence since he came in, and he immediately had success, which certainly helped his cause. But he's got a one-year player option on his contract, and I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, people were clamoring to extend him to make sure that he was under contract for next year. And I don't know if anyone's necessarily clamoring for him. He is, I would call him the ideal backup quarterback at this point in his career. He's going to come in and win a few games for you, steady the ship, but he's not, like you said, a guy that's going to win a Super Bowl, even with the defense that the Bills have, which is a very, very good defense. And they've been keeping him in games so that he could he had maybe one good pass against the Browns, and the rest were just kind of, I don't know, crappy. So it depends on which Orton shows up that week, whether Bills fans like him or not, which, if you don't have a Hall of Fame quarterback under center, is pretty much how every fan base is.
Yeah, and even when you have Peyton Manning, you got people clamoring for Tebow for some reason.
I choose not to believe that, but
we don't have the wisest of fan bases all the time in Denver. We do have a lot of people who were maybe of evangelical persuasion who were very excited to have Tim Tebow on the team and very upset that he was left behind for Peyton Manning.
I can understand that, but I mean, even God knows that Peyton Manning's better than Tim Tebow, right? I mean,
I don't know if you. That was another thing we were thinking. Like, why wasn't Tebow an option in Buffalo when this came about? But I don't think you could do that to Kyle Ward. He probably has it in his contract. He's like, no, Tebow could never.
I don't know, probably because he's horrible.
And what are you guys going to do with C.J. Spiller next year?
I don't think C.J. Spiller is going to be back. That's just my personal opinion. I think he's going to come back this season from his broken collarbone. He's on IR designated to return. I don't think he'll be back next year. I think he'll opt out of his contract and try to go somewhere else. Personally, I don't know if he's going to get the same. I think his option is for like $6 million or 6.2 or something like that. Yeah. I don't know how many free agent running backs are getting that money on the market. He might because he's so explosive, but I don't think the Bills are going to be laying $6 million a year at his feet. Running backs, they got Bryce Brown in the fold. They've got Anthony Dixon under contract for another few years. They've got Fred Jackson until he retires, essentially. They keep giving him one-year extensions, and he keeps signing them because he loves Buffalo. And so I don't think they need him, and I don't think they're going to want to spend that much money when they have to extend a guy like Jerry Hughes. So
you guys have a really good defense, and you're playing kind of without your centerpiece,
right?
Which is that going to create anything when Kiko's back?
I don't think so. Brandon Spikes is playing on a one-year contract right now. Preston Brown, the guy that they drafted in the third round to essentially replace him, has been playing really, really, really well. So when Kiko comes back, he'll be the every down linebacker that's going sideline to sideline, and it'll cut into Nigel Bradham's playing time. But Bradham has been a revelation this year too. He's playing at a Pro Bowl level. He won't get there just because he doesn't have the name recognition. But all three of those linebackers are really playing really well, and they've got a nice rotation going on with Spikes and Brown and Bradham right now. And Kiko would just slide right into that, I would think.
What happened? Why isn't Bryce Brown running for 150 yards every game? Like, he was great with Philadelphia.
Yeah, he's been getting his touches, but if you remember, you probably didn't watch the game against the Chiefs, but that it was really the turning point for the Bills season. He was going into the end zone, fumble, and the Bills were going to be up by 2 touchdowns against the Chiefs in their own building, and the whole thing kind of just fell apart after that. And I'm not going to say he's in the doghouse because of that, because I think he got the very next carry on the next play that the Bills ran, but it's hard to say. The Bills' offensive line has not been playing very well, so he's not getting a ton of open great lanes to even work with. So they give it to Fred Jackson and Anthony Dixon, who can earn some of the harder yards, and Bryce Brown just gets kind of what's left over. I think he had, let me look, I've got it right here. Yeah, he had 3 carries for 11 yards against the Browns last week. Well, Fred Jackson had 21. So now that Jackson's fully healthy, he's the lead back, and everybody else is fighting over 9 carries.
What's the feeling about the Sammy Watkins draft? Is that a good thing?
I mean, there's hot takes going on. Hashtag hot takes going on. If he doesn't get 10 touchdowns and 1,000 yards every single year of his career, it's going to be a wasted pick or a wasted trade. I don't know if you can say that. I think he's a very, very talented player. I think some folks are miffed that the rest of the rookie receivers, are doing so well, and the Bills gave up 2 first-round picks to get Sammy Watkins, who is also doing well. I'm more of a wait-and-see kind of guy. I think if he has a dynamic passing threat to the offense, then it'll be worth it. It's also hard to judge when Kyle Orton's been playing like garbage for a couple weeks. So I'm willing to give Sammy Watkins, at least a full season or 2.
Yeah.
Just remember, E.J. Manuel doesn't even have a full season of NFL starts, and he's already been benched. So it's hard in the NFL to do that, but I want to give him a little bit more time.
I think I can guarantee that Kyle Orton will have a good game against the Broncos. At least in fantasy terms. He'll have, I'm going to say, 3 touchdowns, maybe not 300 yards, but he's going to play his heart out to make sure that John Elway regrets the day that he made Tim Tebow a starting quarterback.
That's probably true, and one of the things that Orton has been able to do, he didn't get to play against the Bears, but he was on the team, and he got to play against the Chiefs, and he played all right in that game too. He just doesn't have a whole lot of love lost for his former teams. He said so as much against the Chiefs. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to be seeking anyone out after the game, and I would imagine that when at Media Day tomorrow, you might get a quote like that from Kyle Orton.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that works.
I can't imagine he even knows anybody on the Broncos anymore. Maybe Ryan Clady. There's just not very many people left around from the Josh McDaniels era, unfortunately.
I need to see Josh McDaniels when we play the Patriots. But that guy's going to Florida now, right? Come on.
Yeah. I was hoping you guys could beat the Patriots for the Broncos. That would be a nice little...
that would be in Week 17. And we're personally hoping that they can run the table here and go 11-5.
Yeah.
But they have to face Peyton Manning this week, and then next week Aaron Rodgers is coming to town. And then Tom Brady finishes off our year. In between, we get Derek Carr in between, though, so it kind of it totally doesn't even out at all.
Hopefully that falls upon your fantasy football Super Bowl so that you can start all your bills.
I guess. No, I only have Fred Jackson because my boss that is in my fantasy football league let him go when he was hurt because he was like 3-8 and he needed to make a push or something, 3-6 and needed to make a push, and I was winning so I could store him on my team for another 3 weeks. Anyway, let's finish this off. What do you think is going to happen in this game against the Bills in Denver this Sunday?
I do think the Bills are going to play a lot better than maybe anybody's going to give them credit for. I think the Bills are a much better team than a lot of people give them credit for. I don't think they'll win, unfortunately for you guys, but I don't think it's going to be a 49-6 game. I think it's probably going to be in the 30s for both teams, and with the Broncos on top.
The Bills are a 10-point underdog right now, which, to your point, a lot of people aren't giving them a whole lot of credit. I just want to check to make sure that the Bills have scored 30. When the last time the Bills scored 30 points, because if the only time it happened was against the Jets when they turned it over 6 times, I'm going to be miffed. Okay, so the only team they've scored 30 points against this year, the Jets. They 43-23 in Week 8. And then 38-3 in Week 12. That was the game in Detroit. So you're saying that they're going to score 30 points. I don't know.
Look at the Jets. The Jets have look what the Jets did against the Miami Dolphins last night.
Yeah.
And that's defense. I mean, the Broncos are the number 3 overall defense. I don't think that they necessarily deserve it. They've gone through 3 starting linebackers due to the injury. We can be ran on. We can be passed on.
But I think the point you just brought up is interesting. The game that the Jets played last night, I don't think the Bills are only going to pass it 12 times or whatever. But if the Bills are going to have any shot of winning this game, it's probably going to be a lower scoring affair. So you saying it's up in the 30s immediately tells me that the Bills probably lost because I don't want to put it in the hands of Kyle Orton that many times against Peyton Manning. If it's a 17-20 game or a 17-14 game or something like that, I like the Bills' chances way better. So I don't know. That's just where I see it going. Is
I think
Jim Schwartz trying to play that low-scoring game, Bills trying to play ball control, and trying to keep the score low. Not that it will necessarily, but trying to.
I can't imagine it. Peyton has every 2 games he goes off and throws 2 interceptions, and those 2 interceptions can become 14 points, or they could become 6 points, or there could become no points. I can't imagine this isn't the game where he does it. Unfortunately for you guys, I don't think it's going to be that cold in Denver on Sunday. I think we're looking at like low 50s or high 40s, so it doesn't really play into Buffalo's hands that way either. We have a kicker who can't kick it out, a brand new kicker who can't. He doesn't kick touchbacks. So the return game is going to be a lot. Your possession is going to be a lot further forward than you're used to probably. You're looking at maybe 25, 35-yard line as opposed to the 20. It's set up to be a better game than maybe some of the. I know Buffalo fans. I have friends who are Buffalo fans, and you guys aren't the cheeriest bunch.
We've earned it, okay? We've earned it.
I recently was forced to rewatch the what year was it? 1992 AFC Championship game. Jim Kelly versus John Elway.
Oh yeah.
Elway got hurt. Gary Kubiak came in to play quarterback for the Denver Broncos.
I'm sure that went really well.
It was 10-7. That was you guys had you guys were the high-powered offense that year, and we weren't that great of a defense. And somehow we were able to hold you guys to 10. And Scott Norwood at the end of the game kicked a field goal that beat us.
Good for Scott. Yeah, it must have been 92 then, because he was only around 91 and 92. All right, well, thank you, Ian Henson, for joining us tonight on Buffalo Rumblings Live. Make sure you guys go check out Mile High Report. Are you on Twitter, Ian?
I'm at the Orange Page on Twitter. I'm very Bronco-centric on there, so you do not need to.
We still like to throw it out. So I'm at Matt Rich Warren. He's at the Orange Page, and his name is Ian Henson. My name is Matt Warren. Thanks for watching tonight, guys, and go Bills.